Welcome to Getchyapulls. It's Muji,
It's Dan.
and we're back with stuff,
Goddamn right we're back.
and we're back on the original in the original studio, or using the original studio equipment.
Yes, it has been resurrected from the grave. That might mean we've gotten rid of Pultron once and for all. That might mean that son of a bitch will be making a comeback.
Yeah, with this being a comics podcast, I doubt Pultron's actually dead. I'm sure he's just waiting for his time.
Just waiting for a week where we are fresh out of fucking ideas.
Exactly. But
Whoa, how's everybody doing?
it's cool. We got some stuff to talk about. Not a lot of news. It's pretty slow. The comics industry really blows their load at San Diego Comic-Con and New York Comic-Con, and then in between, it's gotta wait. No big cons for a while, so no big news. But
No blowing loads.
no,
Just heavy petting.
there's a little bit of stuff. It's, I guess, the big news, which is just, it's news, but all the details are speculation. But we'll speculate for you. Is DC moving to California because they probably just want for someone that knows how to party to teach them. I think that's their whole thing. No,
How many going to California song puns can we possibly fit into this segment? Continue.
probably at least 13. But they're going to Cali. But they or also, how many other references can we make? How about, where's DC Comics located now? California. Boom. But yeah, they're moving, which is pretty crazy. It's been speculated, like, if you were on the insides, wasn't really paying attention to comic news a couple years ago, but apparently ever since Diane Nelson took over and Jeff Johns became the West Coast, they split it up. It's been rumored that they wanted to go to California, and there were just certain things holding it up, but apparently now with the new head of Warner Brothers, he signed off on it, so it makes sense for them to have everybody in one spot, I think, when it comes to, like, all the editors and everything. They do have some writers that are in New York that obviously won't just be able to drive to the offices, but at the same time, at this point, like, really comic writers and artists are just spread all throughout the country. It's not like the old days where there's an actual bullpen where there's people actually in there writing and drawing at the offices. There are some, but, the majority of people just work from wherever they live. There's everywhere.
Yeah, technology
a
makes
bunch of
that
them live.
possible.
A bunch of them live in Portland. Especially at Marvel, it seems like hardly any of their main people actually live either in California or LA. Any of, like, the big places. So
I've also heard that it's for creative purposes. They want the TV and the movie studio and the comics people to work more together, and I think that would make sense too, really. So, and certainly can't hurt.
yeah, I definitely think that makes sense. You're gonna have all of the minds in one place, especially when they're doing these big, like, if they're gonna be doing events and book line things. You want all the editors to be able to get in the same room, and and I saw in the announcement, even with technology being what it is with video conferencing and everything like that, it's not the same as being able to walk in the office next door and be like, hey, I have this idea, blah blah. And yeah, the same. They're making movies. You want to be able to. You're making. I doubt the Batman movies at this point that they're gonna be asking any of the writers anything for the most part. But you decide you're gonna make a new movie on a character. It'd be great to have possibly the person that writes it, or the editor of that book, in the room, or just everybody, that you can bounce ideas off of. So I do think it probably makes sense overall for them to be in one location. It is, it's the end of an era, though, man. DC has been in New York, in the same building for a really long time, but has been in, the middle of New York for, 75 years now. So it is, kind of sad. That's always been a thing. DC and Marvel are right across the street from each other. So if you're a person like, there's a lot of stories of guys trying to get into comics and whatever, just coming, walking, to one, going across the street to the other after they get rejected, or, just being able to walk the halls and being able to sit down and see, like, this is where Neil Adams, used to draw Batman right here in this room. So, you lose, like, the prestige of all that stuff, but at the same time, probably makes more sense for their company. And then, who knows who's actually going to come? There's all sorts of rumors about some people not getting along, some of the editors, they're looking for an excuse to get rid of. I've heard there's a lot of people, especially in the New York offices, that are kind of like the older generation of guys that are up in their 60s and their, later 50s, that they're probably, they claim they're going to offer everybody, the move, but at the same time, you're asking somebody with a family and everything, especially somebody at a later age, hey, you can have the same job, just move to California. We'll pay for your relocation, but this is where you live now. If you're a lifelong New Yorker, it is kind of like an easy way for them to get rid of some of the people that, they couldn't just move out. Especially some of the guys that probably, with the comics community, with comic fanboys just being so, everybody thinks...
Dare I say touchy?
Yes, everybody thinks they know every single thing that goes on. So if if DC decides, hey, there's an editor, he's been here for 40 years... he's great, but we don't think he's like in touch anymore. But if we just fire him, then the geek community is going to explode on us. Like, this is like an easy way to make the transition. But there are some big dogs though that you don't know about. Mike Martz, who edits the Batman book, who everyone loves, and you hear Snyder praise and everything for really being the most hands off of but just letting people kind of do their thing. Like, he lives there and is old with a big family, so there's already speculation that he probably won't move. And then, there's Bob Harris, who I've heard a lot of people want to get rid of for a while. Him, and then there's the Dio. There's the rumors that, maybe they have soured on him. And, even though, I think he moved from LA to New York to work for DC, so I'm not sure that would be a problem with him, but that would be an easy excuse, if they wanted to give him a severance and everybody hush up and be like, well, I just didn't want to move. Like, that's a perfect excuse. But nobody knows what's going to happen. It's not happening for another year, the actual move. Like, they're open until, like, the beginning of 2015. So it's like 14 months away.
Yeah.
It's just that gives them plenty
Good to know.
Yeah, it just gives them plenty of time. Let's see if we need to get to California by then. It gives them...
Get to New York.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It gives them plenty of time to, let everybody make their decision. So at least... for all the things that, people like to grab on DC, it is very professional to give them a year to decide. That's a really long time to decide, like, what you're going to do. But
yeah, sure.
And also, there might be some good editors that will just walk across the street and work for Marvel. That's also a thing. But, anywho, other bit of news, some movie news. Thor opening this week. Pumped for that. Hope it's awesome. Hope it's not 2.5 Thors, but we'll see.
Yeah, I hope not.
Yes.
Looking for a Saturday showing on that one, I'm thinking, by the way.
Okay, nice. No wrestling?
No wrestling. I'm off this weekend. Oh, dude, I'm off for like 2 fucking weeks.
Nice. Well,
There
I also happen to be off, so...
I too am free indefinitely.
Yes. So, yeah. So yeah, we'll definitely have seen it. By the next time we pod, we'll have seen it, and they'll give us our Thor 2 review. That you can count on.
Yeah, no, you will get the official Getchyapulls Thor 2
Yes.
review. The Dark World. Excited to see Malekith the Accursed on the screen. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, hopefully he's not just, like a bit actor from the, hopefully they're not like... he's from the theater troupe up in Asgard, and they're like, damn it, again?
Not again!
Oh, this is your thing now!
Yeah, I really hope they don't pull that.
He's a basketball player.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I really like the first Thor, probably more so than you did, but I've heard that it's pretty heavy on the comedy.
I've heard one reviewer that I saw, who's like a pretty well-known reviewer, said, use the words... I like it, but it is undoubtedly the cheesiest of the Marvel movies, so we'll see. I also heard it might be the best looking. I heard that it sets, like, the bar, like a bunch of people were saying, like, comparing it to, like, Asgard in this one, because, you've got the Game of Thrones guy, so, Asgard already looked cool in the last one, and now it looks cool and realistic, and they, did their best to shoot, a lot of it, like, on location. I mean, it's still mostly green screen, but they added like a lot more realism to it. I've heard people saying like this is like a real challenge to Star Wars, like see if you can beat this world that they built, in Thor. So,
Oh, that's amazing.
so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. You know what's interesting? The only Marvel movie I saw of the entire Phase 1 in 3D was the original Thor. And it pretty well blew me away, and I pretty well hate 3D. I'm almost tempted to see this one in 3D, but I'll probably pass. I'm a 2D guy when it comes to the theater.
Yeah, you know my thoughts on the 3D.
Yeah, I know you hate it, but
the only thing I've really ever enjoyed...
I'm a bit more adventurous than you.
The only thing I've really... the movies, when they're in 2D, they look like real life. In 3D, they no longer... to me, it doesn't feel like you're there. It's a different kind of experience, but it's more like, you're on like a theme park ride. Like, it doesn't feel more real. It's just something different to look at. They haven't... There's nothing close. They've never successfully made you feel like, because it's, more dimensional, that you're sitting there. Well, that'll probably happen one day where you're just fucking sitting in the movie and you feel like you're in it.
I mean, it just, 3D
better,
usually just gives me a fucking headache. Like,
me too.
Avatar in particular, I went and saw that where it's like, oh, you gotta see it in 3D, and I wasn't impressed. But
see, I just didn't love Avatar in general, but I would say that, I don't see, what the point of seeing it in 2D would be, because everything in it's in 3D, so I'm imagining it probably would.
It was so very gimmicky. Like, what made Thor in 3D awesome was that it was barely noticeable when they were on Earth, right? And I think they probably intentionally dialed back the 3D effects there.
Yeah.
Because it was very, very vague. But when they hit Asgard, it was just on and popping, and that's what really made it stand out, I thought. Because I'm with you, I fucking hate 3D, but I took the gamble on Thor, and I was happy I did.
Yeah, I got tricked. I can't remember. Maybe it was Captain America.
No, it was, I believe it was Transformers, wasn't it?
No, it was a movie I saw with Dave.
Oh, okay.
It was a Marvel movie, and I got tricked into, he was like, meet me here at this time, and he knew my hatred of 3D, and I showed up, and it was the last showing of the night, and it was only in 3D, so I had to see it in 3D. I want to say it was Cap. It might not have been, but I want to say it was it, and I was just so bummed out, but...
Yeah, I don't really see where I would have enjoyed Cap.
The only thing I've really ever liked about it, I saw Avatar in 3D, and like I said, it was okay. It was more like, there's some people that just love that movie, and that's their thing. But that was more of it was almost like a show-off thing. You've got your podcast talking more about wrestling here on Potty Humor, Midnight Black Mass. And it's more of when you see guys who do cool moves, but there's no story. That's Avatar to me. It was like a good show off. It was like, look what we can do now. And I was like, that's cool. If I was if I was a cinematographer, I'd be like, wow, I can't believe you did that. But I didn't find very much substance in that movie. I didn't really like it. But one thing I really, really added to it that I did like was I saw Piranha 3D. And Floating Nutsack made it worth the extra couple bucks. And also in dumb 3D as a kid, I did watch, even though it was on TV, so it was rented on TV, so it's not even the same, and it probably didn't have the effect it was supposed to. I watched the Nightmare on Elm Street that was in 3D.
Oh yeah.
Remember they gave you 3D glasses, came with the movie at the video store to watch it, and I thought that was cool, but I was 8, so maybe that's what the people that like 3D. Which, the Marvel movies are, for kids. We still like them because we're man boys, but there are certainly, whereas Batman and Man of Steel are looking for people in their 20s, Iron Man 3 is for a fucking 10-year-old kid. But maybe that's why the 3D does work in some of those movies, because they are made for, not particularly for us. But other interesting news from the movie, though, Jamie Alexander, who you might know just from Thor. Lady Sif. She's been in some other stuff, but she is rumored to be in the running for Wonder Woman. She dropped a hint during a recent interview that she had spoken with DC, and then people immediately are like, well, what the fuck else? And there's also the big rumor that there's an uncasted big female role in the, Batman versus Superman, or whatever it's going to be called, and that people think it's Wonder Woman. Things are starting to add up where a lot of people around town are they can't tell, but a lot of big name actresses or the people, not really big name, but the type of people that would be reading for this, reading for something in that movie. I'm not allowed to say what it is, and you just kind of get the hint that they may be dropping Wonder Woman into that thing at some point too, which would be badass. It would be great. I would almost rather her be in almost a cameo role, and then to set up for her movie. That would be my favorite thing. But it's cool. I mean, she does look like Wonder Woman. She wasn't in the first Thor a lot. We'll probably have a much better understanding of her abilities after Thor 2 because there's a lot more of Thor's friends on Asgard in this movie coming up. But also, it makes me like a little bit afraid. Like a lot of people, I mean, you don't know, but a lot of people think that like DC and Warner Brothers are just really out of the loop when it comes to like how to handle these characters and stuff. And it does really scare me. I just see in my mind they saw the previews for Thor 2, and this may be totally not what happened, but I'm imagining like in a cartoon where they see the preview for Thor 2 and see her dressed up. They're like, wait, that kind of looks like how Wonder Woman looks in the comic. Like, that's the person. Like, somehow they never imagined, like, they don't have, they don't have enough, in their brain to like, imagine someone in a Wonder Woman costume that you actually physically have to see them dressed similar before you can figure it out. But,
well, let's hope not.
Yeah, let's hope not, but it is cool. There's a good rumor. It is cool if Wonder Woman might be popping up in this movie. Wouldn't it be some real shit if this was just the Justice League and they were just fucking with everybody? But, anyways. Also that too, saw a bunch of people talking about Marvel. This is weird things. I guess DC and Marvel, in one way, like, are competitors, but another way when it comes to, like, movies, like, I don't really see it, like, when they're making these movies, like, I don't think, like, they're like, when we put out Batman, we're aiming to beat Avengers. These movies are so big now that they're like, when we put out the next Batman movie, we want it to be the fucking biggest movie ever. And
we're aiming to beat whatever blockbuster is coming out that year.
Because, people are, like, talking about Man of Steel, like, not living up because it didn't make $1 billion, which other things have, which I'm like, even though it is Superman, it was the first movie in a run. And
not to mention that character's been shit on for fucking 2 decades. Superman's been painted to be the dorky fucking second best to Batman. And even though he's not that in the DC canon, I mean, he's right up there with the Bats. He's actually supposed to be better, but everybody just likes Batman more,
people are dickheads. Superman's too clean. Like,
right.
Everyone, like, most people are, like, so, like, it's just the way people are these days. People are so fucking turned off by, like, anyone like trying to like not do like bad things, because we really do live in a world where now it's like people just accept the fact that they're gonna fuck up all the time. So if someone like people get like so much jealousy goes on now. If you see someone who's doing good or isn't fucking up, it's like, oh, who do you think you are? It's like, I'm a person that's trying not to do bad things or harm people. Like what? Just trying to live my life and do good. So, I do see it in that perspective, too. People, like, I hear so many people, like, talking about Superman, like, oh, he's this one-dimensional, like, he's, can't mess up his blah, blah. And it's like, since when is that not, like, how you're, like, supposed to try to be? I mean, it's impossible. Everybody's going to fuck up. But you should be trying to fuck up as little as possible. You shouldn't be, I like Batman more, too. But, would you rather be a guy who fucking hates everyone so bad that his parents died, that you're just fucking looking for vengeance all the time, no matter what, and like nobody can get close to you?
You're just mercilessly beating assholes.
Yes, and you're a loner, and you're going out there, and you're just a regular dude, and you're putting your life on the line? Or would you rather be a fucking guy with every power in the world who completely can see right and wrong, like right down the middle,
and gets the girl,
and does get the girl, and is trying to make sure that everyone, trying to make the world, he's not out trying to like, punch bad guys because he's, mad at them. He just doesn't want bad guys to do harm to other people. You would think Superman would be like, oh, I wish the world was populated with Supermans, but I really think if there was a real live vote, people would want the fucking population like filled with Jokers instead, because he's more interesting. Like, yeah, he's a dick, but he's more interesting. I would rather be the Joker than Superman.
Well, my point is, he's been out of the loop for so long in the public eye. I mean, you're talking about Christopher Reeves was the last time that he was really portrayed.
And even in comics, since the death of Superman is really the last time he was newsworthy.
Right, so...
That's at least, 20 years ago at the smallest.
So, I mean, yeah, he's Superman, but you've also got to reintroduce him. And so the fact that movie did as huge as it did was great. And now they've introduced a new Superman from a new generation with a slightly new moral compass. It's the same, but you're kind of seeing how he gets there instead of him just having these morals
Instead
from the
just
onset.
Being good, he's actually having to make some mistakes to get good.
To learn, exactly.
Making him a little more human, which is the thing that people that have turned on him don't like, the fact that he is so flawless.
And I mean, you've got that Henry Cavill who's, he's a good looking guy. He's fucking in shape. He's big, which is like you haven't really had many big Superman, and I think by the time that they're done telling these stories, Superman will be $1 billion character again. But he's taken some damage over the years, so they got to rebuild him up a little.
But this is just the first one. I mean, I think people just forget. Like, everybody lives so much in the now, and everybody wants to base everything 100% off adventures. It's really damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because people argue DC should go slow and build their universe the same way Marvel did, put out these movies and build to a film and, not jump the gun. But at the same time, if it doesn't make $1 billion, it's like, oh, well, Avengers is making, $1.8 billion. If your movie made $700 million, you're not in the same ballpark. You need to step it up, and you can't do both. And I mean, one thing that I do think about that is just, like, I made the mistake today, because this is the worst thing you could ever do in the world, was like I was on like a message board and people were talking about.
And you read the comments.
No, not that. I was actually just on there, like I made a comment, and then people were just talking about, how far behind DC is. And I'm like, well, yeah, there's 5 Marvel movies coming out this year and no DC movies. So yeah, Marvel's killing it. I mean, 3 or 2 of these movies aren't Marvel Studios, so if you want to look at it that way, they're not all theirs, but at the same time, they are killing it, and then there's one DC movie the year after, and there'll be 3 more Marvel that year, so it's just, they are putting out a lot more stuff, but like my argument was like, people forget, you gotta build like, Man of Steel made more money than Iron Man 1 or 2 made. And Iron Man is now arguably at the box office the biggest draw there is. I mean, Iron Man 3 made more than Dark Knight Rises or The Dark Knight. So, singularly, just from a money standpoint, he's the biggest superhero there is right now. So, but that Man still made more money than 1 or 2 of that, and made more money than any Marvel movie that doesn't have Iron Man in it. Outside of Avengers and Iron Man 3, it would be it's higher. Everything but that and Batman. I mean, Batman, Dark Knight Rises, and Dark Knight are 3rd and 4th on the list, and then so you've got that. So outside of Iron Man and Batman, Man of Steel made more money than any Cap movie, than the first Thor did, than the Hulk, anything, any X-Men movies ever made, any Spider-Man movies ever made. It made more money than all those things. Yet people like consider it a disappointment. It's just like, it's for any part 1 in a series, it made the most money out of any of them. It made way more money than Batman Begins, which is completely considered a huge success. It's like people just forget that just a few short 7 or 8 years ago, that making Iron Man and making Batman was like a big risk. Like, it was like, we might lose our ass and not make any more of these movies. So I think people just, like I said, I think they just grade it harshly just because of just the weird anti-DC and Warner Brothers biases out there. If you look at movies too, man, people like wonder about like Warner's not knowing what they're doing. It's like they had like the 2 biggest hits this year, like money to like investment wise. Like they put out The Conjuring for $20 million, and it's at like $430 million. So,
badass movie, by the way.
Great movie. So Warner Brothers knows what they're doing. I haven't seen Gravity yet, but I want to. It could end up being douchey, but it still looks cool enough to check out. Which is one I'll have to see in 3D if I see it. So that's a real soul searching moment, deciding if I want to go see that or not. But that was another. They spent like $80 million on it, and it's like $450 million. It's like they know what they're doing, like at the studio there. So I think things are just going to work out. People just need to be patient. Like in this time, whereas Iron Man started out, this time 4 years from now, you'll probably see like, oh shit, there's 3 DC movies coming out, now.
Yeah, and Marvel's putting out a lot of movies, and they've all been pretty good, but
they could saturate themselves, oversaturate.
They're in danger of it, I think. I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah,
Money only goes so far. I'm going to pay to go see all these movies, but not, every Joe Blow's not.
I mean, I think you can see just looking at other things have done this. I mean, just like wrestling, with their TV and pay per view stuff. I mean, you can't really get to a point to where I mean, especially if DC, if their universe opens up, and then you've got Marvel making all these secondary characters and third characters, and they're still going to keep making Captain America and Iron Man. Like those things aren't just going to go away when those things come up. And then even other non DC and Marvel superhero movies. I mean, there's not going to be room to have a $500 million movie every month. It's just not going to happen. People go to the theaters less than they did 20 years ago, when you were only putting out one superhero movie a year. So I do think there is going to be a breaking point here within the next 5 years where you're just like, next summer looks like a crazy one. It's not quite that, but you can see where it's going, where Star Wars is going to start trying to put out a movie every year. Star Trek is every other year. Transformers, despite what anybody thinks about those movies, they all make a shit ton of money.
And they're drawing a lot of the same audience.
Pirates of the Caribbean's coming back. Those make tons of money. Fast and the Furious every year makes tons of money. There's only so many like weeks and months out of the year. You can't put out like one of these movies and something else open 2 weeks later and make $1 billion back. It's just not going to happen. So people are getting to the point to where soon they're going to have to choose, and you just hope that the comic book movies don't oversaturate. And so at the same time, you hope Marvel doesn't put out so many movies that DC doesn't even have a chance, because people just sour on comic book movies in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's very real. I mean, like, I think Marvel's they've kicked ass so far, and I think they'll continue to do so, but, it's definitely a concern. Anyway.
Yeah. And nobody does good 100% of the time.
No.
There's going to be a huge dud that'll happen no matter now or later. Nobody bats 1,000 like they've so far since Disney's, since Feig has taken over Marvel Studios. So far, they're really batting 1,000, and nobody does that forever. So eventually something will happen. But anyways, there's our non-news segment of the day. Ate up a good 20 there, I'm sure. And we'll get on to our comics. We've read some shit. We can go back to the long box. We can bring that back. We've read some stuff this week.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Not a big preparation, but off the dome. Finished up Grant Morrison's Animal Man run, which is outstanding. I've been really hit or miss with Morrison on stuff I like, and it's really not even that. It's just I didn't love Action Comics. There was some good stuff and some stuff that just got too crazy. And then Batman Incorporated, we both liked. I need to go back and read all the stuff that came before it, because there was just too much stuff that I just didn't understand.
I've got to say, I loved Morrison on the original, like, the origin of Damian Wayne and that run, the old continuity, but so far, I'm not the biggest fan of his Batman Inc., but like I said, I only had half the story, so maybe there's more. And, I'm not ruling out liking it, but what I've read has just not struck me. And then Batman and Robin of his, it was not, like, I thought it was cool, like Frank Quitely's art was cool, and it was alright, but I thought it was kind of overrated.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I know that a lot of people liked it, but I mean, I don't think it's really held up. I mean, there's like some Morrison like held up in the stratosphere Hall of Fame work, and I don't think most people put that up there, even though it is beloved. But the stuff that like really is like heralded really does seem to come through for me, and Animal Man did again. I mean, the stuff I've read, I mean, obviously All-Star Superman might be the best Superman story. And
I'm not trying to hate on Grant Morrison. I was just like, in particular, his Batman.
Sometimes he does have some crazy work, but but I read Animal Man, and it completely held up. Like, Animal Man, of course, was his first work at it was at Vertigo, but his first work for DC, and I loved it. It's really crazy. It's really, I mean, it's a complete origin of Animal. Animal Man had only had like 5 to 6 appearances before that. Never had his own book, so he was just a character that was out there. Had showed up in like some sort of like Tales of whatever book before, but this was really him writing the whole origin. Read the New 52 stuff. It's cool because they have changed him up, but you see how, I mean, it's, a lot of it's taken from like, Grant Morrison's Animal Man, because he did, come up with the whole character. And it's pretty awesome. I mean, he eats peyote in it. So, he does all sorts of crazy, awesome things in it. And there's a bunch of weird stuff too. Like, this is Morrison weird at its best. Like, there's issues where when Animal Man's tripping, he contemplates, like, is he just a character in a book? He's like, what is it? Am I just a character in the book? And then you see, like, a pencil drawing, and he's like, wait. He's like, it's happening now. It's happening now. So you see that later on. Grant Morrison shows up in the book. Yes, he's drawn into the book. So look forward to that. There's just a bunch of crazy stuff that happens in it, but there's also a bunch of great stuff. And there's a lot of great one-liners too in it. So it is really good. I mean, I can see this is the thing that turned people on to Morrison and made them like him in the first place. So it's pretty badass. Like I said, I finished it, the omnibus. I think it's like 31 or 32 issues. It's this whole run. And liked it a lot. I'm going to have to move on. I'm going to have to go. I know that he wrote next was
Doom Patrol.
Doom Patrol was next. And so I've got his JLA stuff, which I only read the first volume of and loved. I just took a break on it to read other things. But I think Doom Patrol's next. So I'm probably going to have to check that out next just because I really 90s Grant Morrison so far, everything I've read I really dug. So
sweet. Well, I read a couple of different things. I read some Cable and the X-Force from Marvel Now, about 15 issues or so of it. It was a good little run and an enjoyable book. It's weird. It's almost like if 24 was a fucking Marvel book.
right.
That included time travel and,
Of course.
mutant drama.
It is a book that's in Marvel, so there has to be time travel.
Especially involving Cable. I mean, that's kind of his thing. But it's pretty much where Hope has also found a home after being shuffled around from various books, where last year she was one of the most important characters in the Marvel Universe. This year she gets a couple pages in this book.
That happens sometimes in Marvel. They build somebody up and they're like, nah, whatever.
Yeah, I noticed that. Like, Luke Cage was kind of that. When Bendis was riding high on the Avengers titles, Luke Cage was fucking front and center, man. And, like, now he's kind of cooled off and is just on one little book. So, that's interesting. But no, it's worth checking out if you're a fan of the X universe. It has all the staple drama and internal conflict of the X-Men, dealing with all sorts of different social issues. It's also where Colossus is located right now, so
nice.
You get to see what he's up to, and an awesome fucking little tryst with him and Domino. So they have a little thing going on, and Domino just wants to fuck, and Colossus is like, he's getting feelings and shit, and they play with that quite a bit. There's the tension and the chemistry there, and like that part of it's really well done, and there's some crazy action. It's kind of part spy drama, kind of written to be like a network cable show. Cool. Like the way the issues are laid out. That was pretty cool, and I also read the first 10 issues of James Tynion's Talon, and really, really impressed with that. It's very Scott Snyder-ish, and it takes a minute to get off the ground. Like, first few issues are kind of slow, and I mean, it's not bad, but it's just like, okay, it sets you up for this plate of like what the book is going to be, and then about 5 or 6 issues in, it just flips the fucking script entirely on you and changes like everything about what's going on, and shit's revealed, and lots of twists and turns by this guy. But so far it's been pretty good. 10 issues in. Gives you a nice little other piece of the Bat universe. You get all your staples of Gotham City. Most of it takes place in Gotham.
I often wonder, Gotham, I mean, it's a pretty big place, but it just seems like people will be constantly just out on patrol. Like, I want to see that book. A Gotham Central-esque of just, I know they had Streets of Gotham, but I want like a legit Streets of Gotham where you're just walking the Talons, walking on the road. He's like, hey, Nightwing, what's up, dude? And then they just keep walking. That's got to happen all the time. There's so many people. There's like 18 people, superheroes in Gotham. They're always in Gotham at the same time. You think they would just run into each other more. I mean, I don't want more crossovers, but you think it would be realistic, like, if you, like, try to rob a store in Gotham and you're fast, you would think if you ran 10 blocks, all of a sudden you'd look back and there'd be fucking 9 people behind you dressed up as superheroes. Like, shit!
Yeah, you would think, but there's like as many superheroes as there are. There's about 50 times more villains, so...
That's also true. That's also a thing. If you're not a superhero or villain, why would you ever live there?
For example, in the Talon, really the only villain he fights the entire time is the Court of Owls, and another major Batman villain appears in the later issues making a pact with the Court of Owls, working with them. So you really get to see what happens with them after Batman whips their ass in the pages of Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's fine work. And it's sort of, them regrouping and trying to get their shit together because Batman really put a fucking dent in them, and the Talon's on their ass because he's a former Talon who's fucking doesn't like being a slave and a pawn for their murder games. That's pretty cool. Check it out.
Sweet. Well, we'll get to our pulls.
Time for pulls.
I had the big deuce this week. The shitty deuce. Not literally, Dan. But said two, but at least they were cool. Nightwing annual number 1. Nightwing finally getting him a nice big annual here. He deserves it, especially after being left out of Villains Month. I mean, though he played a huge part in Forever Evil, but he got no Villains Month book. There was no Nightwing 23 dot whatever. I mean, who the fuck would it be? The problem is, get the Trickster now is Nightwing's big guy, but I mean,
he ended him. In the
it's just all Batman's villains or Nightwing's villains, so it's kind of a problem. But anywho, it's a cool story. It's a little bit of romance, a little bit of Dick and Barbara having a time.
Dickie and Babs
going on a little adventure, deciding if they want to get back together. Spoilers, they don't. But it was good. It was good to see that in the New 52. See that happening, which apparently Batgirl, because I'm reading it in trade, and DC is really fast about those. We're 12 issues behind. Apparently Barbara's given up being Batgirl and isn't wearing the costume in her book or anything. And I don't know that, because I'm almost a year behind, because I'm waiting on that next trade, which will be here in 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, I'll only be 7 months behind.
In 2 weeks, you'll only be 7 months behind finding out why she's not in the costume
Exactly.
anymore.
So if I'm alive at this time next year, get your pulls like number 120, I'll tell you why. So for only that reason, you want to keep listening. That can be it. And then Saga. Number 15. Saga back on a regular shipping schedule, getting these suckers every month, which is the best. Story is really starting to ramp up. Last few issues have been hiding out at dude's house. And in this issue, you get all sorts of crazy stuff. Find out people are hot on the trail. A little bit of love connection. There's all sorts of shit that happens in this book.
The fucking major death.
Yeah, most likely. He does appear to be dead. Saga has done a lot of final page dead, not dead. Remember,
yes, plenty of times.
Yes, plenty of times, but you do get to see somebody gets stabbed in the neck, so that's awesome.
Yeah, that's always fun. There's not a more unique book on the shelf than Saga. I mean, it's hard to... I've described it as a bunch of different crazy shit on various episodes. It's like...
I mean, it was perfect. I think it was perfectly described before it came out. Brian K. Vaughan said it was like... It's a cross between, like, Star Wars and... what the fuck else did he say? I can't remember. It was so perfect I'd fucking remember. But, it is a big space odyssey. It's almost like Star Wars, like the stuff you only get to see glimpses of. Like, they keep going from planet to planet, and it's unique, and there's crazy stuff going on each time.
Yeah, it's like Star Wars meets a Tarantino movie or something.
Yeah, and crazy stuff keeps happening. And it's also, a soap opera between some of the characters, their relationships and stuff in it that are also like a big prime part of the book that you get to find out, like a little family thing going on. But it's very good. It's one of the most unique. It's one of the best books that there is. So if you're not checking it out yet, I mean, if you haven't heard about Saga, then you're fucking. I don't know how you found this podcast, but if you're not reading it, believe the hype. Check it out. I think the first 2 trades are like $10 a piece or less. I think you can get them on like cheap graphic novels for like $7 a piece. You can get caught up almost all the way. But I would highly recommend, if you don't read many indie books, make this one of the ones that you check out.
Oh, it's just nothing short of fantastic. Is that all you had?
That's the Dirty Deuce.
Double Dirty Deuce, huh?
Yes.
Fucking A. Well, I had a few. I had 3, count them, 3 big annuals. We'll start outside the new 52, since no annual made pick of the week this week. Smallville special number 8072.
I was gonna say, it is a week of the year, so there must be a Smallville special.
Oh, apparently it's only number 3. It would seem that there's been so many more.
Yeah, that's true.
But actually, no, I guess they're right, because there's just the Batman and Martian Manhunter, and then the Lois and Lana one, and now the Lex and Tess.
I hope Smallville keeps going, because shooting these things out so quickly, like, makes you believe in one way. Maybe they've told him, like, you're getting to do 1 year of this, so any extra stories you want to shoot out, put them out there. But hope that's not the case. Hope it keeps going and going.
This was a very fun type of story here. It's really focusing on what's happened to Lex and what's happened to Tess Mercer since the end of the series, and it's right in continuity with the story they've been telling overall, so it fits very well. Tess, of course, was murdered in the final episode of Smallville, spoiler alert.
That was before they decided they were going to make a comic.
And in one of the early storylines of the comic, we find that somehow her consciousness is buried inside Lex's consciousness. So she's like her spirit, I guess, is fighting to be free of Lex, and eventually that's found out, and they extract her from him and essentially put her into the Watchtower intelligence. So as we learn more about the Smallville origins of the Watchtower, Chloe was the original brains behind it, and essentially that was her superpower name. But then also, the computer system is actually Tess Mercer's consciousness. So,
one word to explain that: comics.
Only comics. We get to see a lot of Lex interacting with Otis, who was played by Ned Beatty, of course, in the Christopher Reeve films, Richard Donner films. He's been a regular here in Smallville. And you see Lex confronting some angry former disgruntled LexCorp employees who beat his ass in the street. and that's not cool.
Where's your suit, bitch? Like people said it looked dumb.
So this is really pretty much about Lex kind of coming to grips with who he is and becoming even more evil, as we've really not seen him make the full turn here. It is Smallville, so he's been a bastard, but he's not been like the murderous, like the level of bastard that Lex Luthor can be.
Yeah.
But he's been kind of licking his wounds, and now he's seeing things differently. And but it's really more about Tess being a hero. She actually hijacks. There's a place Superman's busy, and she hijacks the electronics of a fucking giant mechanical crane to save a child from this burning building and different shit. So, and of course, her and Lex end up facing off in the end. Is pretty much what it builds up to. And she gets the best of old Lex there in the end, and Tess has her moment in the sun. So,
and then her moment in a computer chip.
That's yeah, except for she's only an artificial intelligence, unfortunately. But hey, Smallville, it's keeping it going. Like they're committing to the weird shit they've done, just like they did in the show, and they're advancing the storylines with it clearly. So I'm on board. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, very happy.
Moving on, Aquaman Annual number 1, written by John Ostrander, not the normal creative team. Jeff Johns, who is on his way out, and Jeff Parker on his way in. But this was
sounds sexy.
This was a one-off story about Aquaman's pre-Justice League super team, the others, and
They were cool. Previously, a big part of the first arc.
they were cool, and it's a cool story. You get to find out like what each of their Atlantean relics mean, because if you notice, each of them had a relic that they used as like you get the story behind that, and then also the villain is classic DC villain, also a villainess of literature, Morgana Le Fay, the sorceress, who's also a Marvel villainess too, because she's one of those fucking public domain characters that anybody can use.
So it's Thor. I keep waiting on Thor to pop up. If there was like a real pissing contest, DC could just pop Thor up and be like, yeah, we do a Thor book now too, motherfuckers.
That is true. They very well could. But that was a cool story. It was,
Funny bit of fact about that. When Kirby was suing Marvel over characters he created, one of the ones was Thor, and said, he'd never been represented a Marvel comic before, and part of the defense by Marvel was that, or part of the defense that he didn't use, which he should have used, was that he actually drew Thor in a DC comic before he drew it in a Marvel comic. A little bit of comics history for this week.
Interesting. Moving on to the final annual, Green Lantern Annual number 2. Lights Out Part 5, Relic's Triumph. You see the very end of this storyline. I missed a couple things. I must have missed them hooking up with the Red Lanterns and the Star Sapphires, but we know they did, and they got us here, so I didn't need the Green Lantern Corps or Green Lantern New Guardians crossovers to tell me that.
Yes.
But here you have the final battle with Relic. There's some crazy developments in this motherfucker. As in particular, what's happening with the Green Lantern Corps? There's a couple of death teasers here. Ultimately, you think Kyle Rayner, the White Lantern, dies. But he doesn't. But what he had to do to keep the universe from exploding was harness each color entity from the emotional spectrum, which those are the supernatural beings that power the rings and the colors. So he had to take all of them and throw it into essentially the Big Bang, or the Green Lantern universe equivalent of it, to
God.
to replenish the light source, because the light source was depleted, and that's what Relic was fucking freaking the fuck out about and was going to kill everybody over. Because you're wasting the light, you fuckers are wasting the light, I'm going to kill you all.
So Relic is just someone's middle-aged dad.
Yes, essentially. The light is not infinite, you're wasting it.
Relic is mad that Hal Jordan is keeping computer plugged in when he goes to bed.
Well, eventually they defeat the motherfucker and send his ass back into the void in which he came from. But because Kyle Rayner had to do that, there's really the shit powering the emotional spectrum. Like, now when it's gone, there's not entities to replace it. So, I mean, it may have lasted them a few thousand years, but now it's got everybody freaked the fuck out. So, all the Green Lanterns quit and make Hal Jordan be the only one. Huh. And
yet there shall be other Green Lantern books next month.
Yeah, so, I mean, they're going to have to figure out a way to do something there, but for the moment, it looks like they're eliminating all of the color-coded lanterns except for Hal, because, I mean, I bet, like, the Red Lanterns will probably still stick around because they're dicks.
Yeah.
And the Yellow Lanterns will. Now, the Sinestro Corps doesn't exist anymore. Sinestro wiped them motherfuckers out before he disappeared. So
it's just setting up for next month's crossover. Green Lantern, We Are a Family. Starting with part 1 of Green Lantern going on. It's an 11-part extravaganza, which will be followed up by Green Lantern, This Is How We Make Stew, with ingredients in each book.
I tell you, I like this Robert Venditti. Like what he's doing with the characters. Like the direction he's going.
But you just really want to drop a book.
No, I'm giving it an ultimatum. I need 2 complete story arcs that only occur in Green Lantern.
It's not asking too much.
In a row, and I'll keep this book.
Not asking that much.
If I get another goddamn crossover in the middle of that, it's done.
It's got to be careful. Well, actually, DC needs to drop books because you dropped Swamp Thing, and now it's like their most beloved book. So maybe Green Lantern, maybe that's all they need for it to shoot back up into it's like the popularity of 2008 is once you drop it, it's going to be the best thing there is.
It must fucking be. But anyway, enough with DC. It was a good week.
It was okay. Those annuals were... Nightwing was worth it.
Nightwing was the best annual. Green Lantern was pretty good. I mean, I just wish it wasn't the end of another crossover. I mean, I got the gist of it. I didn't feel like I fucking missed anything, but...
Hey, quick FU to DC, who, of course, is my favorite of the 2 companies, but... So, next month, thanks a lot, motherfuckers. All the year 1, all the 0-year tie-ins are $4 a piece. My normal $3 Nightwing, one of my few $3 books.
I know, the Flash.
$4. It better have some extra pages. It better not be a fucking 22-pager, but due to the fact that it says 0 year on the cover, you're charging an extra $1.
Well, it costs us extra ink to type 0 year,
yeah,
so we're charging you an extra $1.
Not to mention, even though if there was one book that's worth the extra money, it's definitely Batman. So next week, 2 weeks from now, new Batman book, $5. Just a regular book. It's $5. Batman hasn't been $4 in forever.
That's fucked up.
It better have extra pages. Which the last one was $8, completely worth it. But this shit adds up. Between the amount of books we're both getting, like that's like an extra $10 to get the stories that we just normally get. Not even buying extra books, just getting upcharged for books. So
it's a dick move.
It's a dick move.
But anyway, on to Marvel. We'll start with, we had 3 Infinity tie-ins, so we'll start with one that's not that. It would be X-Men Battle of the Atom number 2, a.k.a. Battle of the Atom Part 10, a.k.a. the end of this story, which is way more difficult to explain to you than to just say that I loved it and thought it was a wonderful tribute to 50 years of X-Men history. You gotta look at what could happen, worst case scenario with some X-Men. This has often been a theme. You gotta look at the past X-Men and they learned something about themselves. And
what they learned about themselves is that the whole arc was about sending the X-Men somewhere, and they're not fucking going anywhere.
Except for, spoiler alert, Cyclops' team.
Except as all new X-Men is selling way too many for the story to end. So they're just hanging around, and I saw the solicitations, which does excite me, but apparently Cyclops' team gives them costumes, so it looks like they're actually gonna gear out of, like, you know, their old school yellow costumes. They're all gonna get their color-coded shit.
Yeah, and I'm invested in the X drama, so like when someone jumps from Wolverine's team to Cyclops' team, it excites me. It probably doesn't excite the average comic reader.
It just happens so much. I mean, even Kitty Pryde jumped.
Oh, that's pretty big.
Everybody jumped.
She's been down with Wolverine from day one, and she told him to fuck off.
That's because Wolverine fucks everybody but her.
If he just lay the pipe.
Yes. But in every different possible future, Wolverine has a kid with everyone.
He's a busy man.
No matter who it is, he's got kids with somebody. There's been books where in the future he's married. Well, I mean, seriously, in Uncanny X-Force, it shows us the future, and he's with Psylocke. They're together. In X-Men, it shows that he had a fucking kid with Mystique. That just happened.
Yes.
He's with Jean Grey in Age of Apocalypse.
Yes.
He's with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, he's the old knucklehead. Ladies can't resist his 5'2" charms.
I guess so. Yeah, I liked it. As with life, I liked it a little bit less than you did, but I mean, it was good. It is another, like, as are almost everything. Maybe not Forever Evil. Maybe it'll be the one that you're just like, that was exactly the right amount of length, because I have loved it so far. I do feel like this thing, once again, could have been told in way less issues than it was told in. Especially since, as they always do, I mean, things just basically, for the most, I mean, it didn't go back to status quo, but, I mean, you know, nothing. How I guess we'll get more of an explanation of, like, if anybody that's, like, from our time died. I know some of the future X-Men died, and they had to bury them. I couldn't tell. Like, it didn't seem like anyone, like, from now, at least anyone of consequence, got killed or anything. It seemed like it was all the future ones. But, I mean, it was only 10 issues just to be like, for the most part, and it was good. I liked it. Because you're rating on a scale of 10. I give like an 8 out of 10, which out of most crossovers, I give like a fucking deuce.
Right,
like
yeah.
Avengers vs. X-Men, I'd give like a 3 out of 10. So it was strong, but at the same time, it took 10 issues basically for them to have a reason for the original X-Men to go to Cyclops' team so they can shoot out another 18 issues of that before it gets canceled, you know? That's what I felt like. That's, you know, with Daredevil going to 36, I keep looking at, like, a lot of these Marvel books end between 32 to 36 issues, which is perfect, like, omnibus level. I mean, what happened was Uncanny X-Force, right? It went like 35.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is another, like, we got to churn out, like, another 17 issues so that we can make an omnibus, so.
And then start over with another goddamn number one.
Yeah, with fucking number ones. We won't even bitch about that next week, but I am fucking... Marvel, it is like, they've gone like, they take what DC did that worked and are just like, this is our whole new thing. It does look like they're just going to start renumbering after every writer leaves, which is just kind of annoying. But anyways.
That does really change the whole landscape of comic numbering. It makes it pretty meaningless. Where
it also makes it to where, like, I mean, you know, are you like, I mean, maybe if they want people to read digital and don't want, but it does, like, make way less of an incentive to actually collect the books. Like, it makes it seem like way more, like, to get the trades is, like, really, you know, more cost efficient. And, you know, it's just, they're not going to be as collectible if there's a new number one every 2 years. You're really, like, part of the market that really strives, that, like, keeps comics popular is the fact that some of these books end up doing well. And that's gonna, like, make it kind of...
Yeah, well, I mean, if they relaunch Uncanny X-Men again, that'll be the third relaunch off the original numbering, because they ended it at, like, a little over 600. They ended the original run, and then they did the Kieran Gillen run, and then they ended that and did the Marvel Now run. So this is two, like, I mean, because they only got like 20-something issues in the Kieran Gillen run.
Yeah, if they relaunch it early next year, that'll be 3 times in just over 4 years that they've relaunched the book.
That's bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, that's just... And their reasoning is it's because number ones always sell better, so that's why... That's what I heard of why they're trying to... Which makes sense for books you're trying to save, like they're relaunching Captain Marvel, because, like, everybody says they love it. People are showing up dressed up as Carol Danvers at cons like crazy. It's one of the most popular costumes. But the book sales just aren't there. So their idea is we'll relaunch at number one because people go out and grab number ones. But if you keep doing that, the reason people grab number ones a lot is because they think they're going to be worth something. You know, I think their idea is people find that a number one is like an easier way to get into the comic, which is true. But a lot of it is people going out and buying them because they think it may be worth something. And that's going to cut all those people out, so I don't think it's going to work the way they want it to.
People like a sense of legacy, too. Like, to be part of something. Like, I think people, myself included, were pretty butthurt that Spider-Man got renumbered of all books.
Yeah, I mean, I've got, you know, starting in the mid-400s, all the way to 700 of that book, and then it's just like, it would be nice if they just, even on the inside of the book, when they do these renumberings, because they always still celebrate, like DC, you know, like they still celebrate, like this is the 7th Detective Comics, the least worthwhile, like, $7 book ever was like, this is supposed to be like issue number 800 or whatever it was, so, you know, even though it's New 52 that did the celebration, they should just do that, like on the inside of X-Men Uncanny, on the front cover, sure, it's Marvel Now 2.0 number 1, whatever the fuck you're going to call it, but on the inside be like, you know, this is, you know, on the inside front cover be like, you know, X-Men number 690 or whatever. That would, you know, go a long way.
It certainly would. So, Marvel Infinity, no, it's been a pretty good event. Marvel's really
I've
been
liked it.
been striking hard with the events this summer, kicking out of a terrible year last year for events. Actually, a couple like.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you go back to their event years, you all the way back. Like, Avengers Disassembled was strong, Civil War was strong, Dark Reign was
Civil
strong.
War the main book, but it got way out of hand.
Oh, it was throughout the entire
Yes.
Marvel universe, but
Yes.
I still thought it was strong, like, because it was just the whole universe was Civil War, and all the stories were not. They were all contained to their own books, but all of it took place.
Had we been getting weekly, we'd have been really bummed about that.
Yeah, probably. But looking at the event years like Secret Invasion, and then all the way up to Siege, I think they had it pretty good. And then the Siege was the big blow off of the Norman Osborn stuff, and then after that, they really kind of fucking shit the bed on events.
Just X-Men is pretty universally disliked.
I didn't like Fear itself that much.
Yeah, most people shit on Spider Island.
Yeah, they had a really rough run there. They had some good event years.
The thing is, like, good or bad, like, I mean, they're going to keep doing it because the book, I mean, they sell. I mean, that's the bottom line, is that if you look at the top 10 in comics every month, it's from DC and Marvel, all these events are in the top 10, and then your regular books kind of sprinkled in. So, it's no matter, I mean, Avengers vs. X-Men was the #1 selling book almost every month, even though you heard generally nothing but people bitching about how much they hated it. It was still the #1 selling book. So, it's, you speak with your money. So, if you keep buying this stuff, that's what we're going to get.
Yeah, so Infinity's first Guardians of the Galaxy tie-in was this week, and I thought it was a good one. It was essentially just the Guardians involving themselves in the conflict that's been built up in the other books, but also continuing what they started with Angela a couple weeks ago. They get in a little spot with the builders who are about to fuck them up pretty bad, and Angela comes in for the save. So that's showing that she appreciated them letting her go and shit. And new artist for this particular arc. It's very different but very cool. I want to say that guy maybe did some Daredevil or something at some point. The last name is Francesco Francavilla.
Yeah, he's great. He did the backups and the later issues of Snyder's Detective when he was doing that, and he's done, I think, a bunch of stuff. He might have done Daredevil.
Nice. And then, so moving on, we had Avengers #22, which is the Avengers has gone pretty much right along line with what's happened in Infinity's main book. It's almost been like the pre and post game show of that. And so essentially that's what we have here is more of the Avengers fighting back. Thanos has taken over Earth. The Avengers have finally turned the tide in the galactic war with the Builders. They finally found a weakness and they started to make a comeback. Now pretty much all that's left is Earth, and Thanos has it, and they've got to come get it back. And that's what Avengers is about, and that's what Infinity is about. So part 5 of 6, moving on to Infinity. We're almost done with this thing.
6 is a good number.
Yeah, it is. And
Infinity's gone along good. There hasn't been any issues that you just feel like they're just trying to get to the next one. 6 seems like the perfect amount for these event books.
No, you see Thanos and his son finally have the big confrontation here.
Oh, Thane.
You don't really see what comes of it, but you do see their confrontation.
Hey, Thane.
Kind of see what the Illuminati's been up to, and this is just sort of letting all the pieces slide into place for this big finale here.
I really hope that Thane refers to Thanos as like he's like an Italian guy, and he's like, Papa. It would just be funny.
Hey, Papa!
Might take you right out of the book, but it would get a laugh.
And we'll wrap this up with a pick of the week, a rare occurrence here on Getchyapulls, a mini-series.
Very many.
The miniest of minis.
as small as you can to be called a series.
2 issues.
The Deuce.
Trial of the Punisher. The most fun you can have in 2 issues, I have to say. We saw like the whole first setup of the trial after Frank Castle murders a DA agent and turns himself in and gets put on trial, and you see the press try to discredit him and all the various witnesses. And Matt Murdock, his lawyer, is the guest here, the expert witness that comes in.
Of course.
And tells the story of some of the Punisher and Daredevil's entanglements, but of course tells it in a way that, as just him being his client, it's like it shows what he's telling the court, and then visually you see what Daredevil and the Punisher were actually doing while recounting this. But ultimately, because Frank Castle is a motherfucking badass who will take no chances and no prisoners when it comes to getting his perp. Okay. We find out his master plan here all along, and it was actually to get arrested because the guy he was after the whole time, he knew was going to be in protective custody there in the court. So
he stole it from that upcoming Stallone movie.
So he busts out of the room with his lawyer and the judge, and he fucking goes right there and he shoots that motherfucker in the head and gets away. And master plan, loved it. I mean, you know, Punisher stories don't have to have a lot. I think people like to overthink the Punisher, or like try to make him think like he's some sort of right-wing superhero or something. It's like,
I'm interested in what's coming up. I mean, you know, the Rucka Punisher we really didn't get. We contributed to it getting canceled.
Yeah.
I'm going to be interested to see what happens, man. The next Punisher, you know, series when it relaunches with Marvel now is Punisher in Los Angeles, which is crazy because, you know, there are some characters that, like, their cities, like, that's tied to their identity, and that's definitely Punisher in New York, so that's going to be wild. West Coast punny.
Yeah, that could be awesome, really. I mean, like, if you really think about it, it could be outstanding.
Yeah, he's probably he's been sent there to destroy DC's new offices. That's gonna be the whole thing.
I think Frank's a very simple character, and you know, if you can get past the murdering thing, which some people can't, he's like a pulp hero to me. You know he's not doing the right thing, but he's the original Dexter.
He's working for the good guy, but he's not going about it the right way. That's for sure.
But it's a very simple concept when you get it right. And
well, he's just Robin Hood with a gun.
They fucking got it right here. I mean, that's Frank. You know, he is the ultimate soldier of fortune, and he proved it there in the courtroom and beyond. And I loved it. So you definitely need to check out Trial of the Punisher.
It was good fun.
All right.
Anywho, we'll have plenty of comics next week. Got a ton. So until then, get your pulls.